Slavery was not just common in Rome. It was a cornerstone of their society and economy. Enslaved individuals were seen as property, with no legal rights. They were bought and sold like commodities, their lives dictated entirely by their owners. Historian Philip Matisak tells us that slavery was a fate that could befall anyone, regardless of their background. You could be captured in war, born into it, or even sold into it by your own family to pay off debts. Let's start with those who worked the land. Agricultural slaves faced some of the harshest conditions imaginable. They toiled from dawn till dusk under the blistering sun, often malnourished and treated no better than animals. Many were chained and forced to sleep in cramped, filthy prison barracks called ergastula. It was a life of relentless labor and little hope. Then there were the mining slaves, who arguably had it even worse. Sent to work underground, they labored in dangerous, unhealthy conditions, illuminated only by dim oil lamps. The air was thick with toxic fumes, making every breath a hazard. Matisak describes this fate as a drawn-out death sentence, and it's not hard to see why. Above ground, things weren't much better for those in construction. Enslaved people built the grand structures of Rome, from roads to aqueducts to temples. Their labor was backbreaking and often carried out under the threat of severe punishment. They were the invisible hands behind Rome's grandeur, yet they received no recognition or respect. Despite these brutal jobs, some enslaved individuals found themselves in roles that required education and skill. Middle-class Roman families, influenced by Greek culture, often sought out educated Greek slaves to tutor their children. These slaves, while still lacking freedom, were valued for their knowledge and could sometimes form closer relationships with their masters. But the majority, especially those from less esteemed regions like Britain or Germany, were relegated to menial tasks. They were seen as less valuable and were often given the most grueling jobs with the least responsibility. Among the more unusual roles were the pregustators, or food tasters. In a world rife with political intrigue, the threat of poisoning was real. These slaves sampled the emperor's food to ensure it was safe, risking their lives with every bite. Then there were the nomenclators, whose job was to whisper the names of guests to their masters at social events. This might seem trivial, but it was crucial for maintaining social decorum in the highly competitive world of Roman politics. Enslavement could happen to anyone. Children born to enslaved mothers were automatically enslaved, regardless of their father's status. Free children were sometimes sold into slavery to help their families financially. Moreover, Rome's expansion through military conquest brought many captives who were forced into slavery. Matisak notes that some military campaigns were essentially large-scale slave raids. The sack of Epirus in 167 BC, for example, resulted in 150,000 people being enslaved. As Rome transitioned from the Republic to the Empire, the supply of new slaves dwindled, leading to stricter laws to prevent slaves from gaining freedom. Wealthy Romans owned many slaves for various tasks, from cooking to childcare to more intimate services. The wealthier the owner, the more slaves they had, and the higher their social standing. Slaves were subject to brutal punishments for disobedience. They had no legal protection, and their lives could be ended on a whim. If a slave killed their master, the entire household of slaves would be executed as a deterrent. Yet, some slaves, especially those in more trusted positions, could form close bonds with their owners. Cicero's secretary, Tiro, was freed after many years of loyal service. This, however, was rare. Most slaves who gained freedom did so by saving any small earnings they received to buy their freedom. Escaping slavery was nearly impossible, but there were notable rebellions. The most famous was led by Spartacus in 73 BC. A Thracian gladiator, Spartacus escaped and gathered a large army of runaway slaves. They achieved several victories before being defeated by the Roman general Crassus. Spartacus's rebellion, although ultimately unsuccessful, left a lasting legacy and inspired many stories and revolutions. In conclusion, the life of a slave in ancient Rome was harsh and often short. Enslaved people were vital to the economy and daily life, but were given little in return. They worked in various capacities, from brutal manual labor to skilled positions, always under the shadow of their owner's power. As you reflect on their lives, consider the complexities of a society built on the backs of the oppressed and the enduring impact of their struggles. So, what do you think of the video? Let me know in the comments below.